So, Chris, I think it's safe to say that RPGs are one of our favorite genres of games.
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that true?
I think we
Kind
can
of
say
like,
that.
especially going back to childhood.
Yeah, I know I have not played as many RPGs as you have, but Kingdom Hearts is definitely one of my favorite ones, and then of course, people could guess from our minisodes that Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games of all time. So those are both RPGs for sure. So yeah, but
Cool. And
yeah,
we haven't visited the RPG genre in our podcast since Evoland back in episode 2.
yeah,
So I'm kind of excited to be back in the RPG space.
yeah, or
Um, for,
Ripiga,
yes, the good old
yeah,
Ripigas, as we call
Ripigas.
them, we gamers call them.
I did used to
Um,
think that that's what back when we first started playing them. I actually thought that that's how you said that. I didn't know it was RPG for the longest time. I thought it was like Ripik, and I'm like, what? This is weird. It's just supposed to be some weird video game slang, and then somebody corrected me.
so,
It was RPG.
I've created just a little game for us. I would like you
Okay.
to list 5 RPGs that you have played,
Uh huh.
notable RPGs, just any five.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be your favorites or anything like that. Just any five.
85.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I feel like this is gonna be one of those like math magic tricks that are like, and
Yes, and now I will
and your
subtract
number
you a
is
third from your
5.
second,
Yeah.
and we have the King of Diamonds. Was that what you were thinking of?
It is amazing. Um, all right. So, am I allowed to name the ones that I already named, or should I not?
If you want, if you're struggling to come up with
I'll do one of
five,
them. I'll
yeah.
do one of them. I'll say Kingdom Hearts 3.
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Say Kingdom Hearts 3. I will
Okay.
say the world. This is terrible. As I'm trying to name it, what is it? The world ends with us. Is that
The
what it's
world
called?
ends with us.
The
Yeah, yeah.
square,
DS game.
the DS one. Yeah. Well,
I
Legend of
think it's the
Zelda
world ends
Breath.
with you, actually.
The world ends with you. That's.
Uh
I'm trying to include everyone here. I don't care. Um,
huh.
it is the world ends with you. Legend of Zelda. Oh, I was gonna go with one. I'm gonna go Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past
Okay.
because that's an to me an excellent one. Final
I
Fantasy
don't.
VII.
Okay. I don't know if I would call Legend of Zelda games RPGs, but
Oh, really?
nonetheless, we'll put it on the list. I
I
don't know if
hmm.
how it would be classified because it's definitely RPG adjacent, but also kind of action adventure and real
All right.
time and things like that. But
Yeah.
we'll leave it on there.
I have seen it classified as that, but if I mean I think I can name
I'll
some of them
continue.
if you end up not, but
Yeah, we'll leave it on there. One more.
I will say so I did say Final Fantasy 7. I will say Final Fantasy 3. That was actually one of the first ones I ever played.
Oh. Now,
Mhm.
now, vamp for time by telling me a little bit about the first time you played Final Fantasy III while I get the rest of this game together.
You are going to like try to guess the card that I'm holding in my hand, aren't you? What's
No,
so
but you're not too
um
far.
okay. Uh, Final Fantasy 3. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I played it before Chrono Trigger or after Chrono Trigger, but I had a
Mhm.
friend that had it. And so and like that was at the time Final Fantasy 3 was known as like the coolest game that you can get for Super Nintendo. So
Now, clarifying question: Are you talking about Final Fantasy VI, which was branded as Final Fantasy III in the U.S. originally, or are you talking about actual Final Fantasy III, the third game in the Final Fantasy franchise?
actual Final Fantasy 3.
Okay.
I mean I believe like cuz
Was
if it was
Kefka the evil clown in it, or no?
oh gosh, I don't quite remember. I know.
Was the
You know what?
protagonist
I
a
gotta.
young woman who rode in a mech suit in the opening segment?
No,
Okay,
no.
that's probably the original Final Fantasy III.
Okay, yeah, that's it. I kind of remember that weirdness of it, because with all the Final Fantasies, I know they skipped over one
Mhm.
that eventually that was always known like they skipped over it, and yeah. Anyway,
Mhm.
but yeah, I remember a little bit playing it. Like it was fun and interesting to go into. Like I had been more used to, again, if we can count Zelda games, like a bit more of the Zelda type ones. Oh, I also had played Dragon. It was an old Super Nintendo one. Like it wasn't Dragon Hunter, but it was something sort of like that.
Dragon Quest.
It might have been Dragon Quest,
That is
perhaps.
another big series that I haven't played a ton of,
Yeah,
but is pretty famous.
yeah. So
Um,
I had done that one too, and that was a little bit more real time combat. So Final Fantasy III was that turn based, one of the first turn based ones. At least that's what I'm remembering, because there's some similarities to that in Chrono Trigger. So it helped me kind of get into Chrono Trigger and then be like, oh, Chrono Trigger is way better. I like this more. So there we go.
nice. Well, I
Yeah.
added Chrono Trigger to the list as well, so there are six
Okay.
games on your list right now: Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy
And you're
7,
thinking of the Ace of Clubs. Ah.
Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past,
Yeah.
World Ends with You, Kingdom Hearts 3, and Chrono Trigger.
Uh huh.
Now, I
Okay.
have a list of IGN's 100 RPGs of greatest RPGs of all time,
Oh my.
uh,
Okay.
and I will go ahead and tell you
100.
100.
100
Three of
greatest.
the
Wow.
games you listed are not on there.
I would
One is
imagine, yeah.
one is listed at 54, one is listed at
Okay.
52, and one is listed at number 1. So of those
Ooh.
6 games, which one is 54, which is 52, and which is number 1?
Oh, which is number one? I kind of want to try to go for that first.
Sure. Again,
And
your
it's out of the
options
ones
are
that I named, right?
yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3, World Ends with You, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 3, and Chrono Trigger.
Uh, whew. Okay, no, I take that back. I'm not going to try to do number one. I'm going to
Okay.
say, you said 54 and 52 were the other ones, right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to say
And 3 that weren't on the
52.
list.
I'm going to say 52 is Chrono Trigger.
That is incorrect, though Chrono Trigger
Ah,
is one of the 3. Did make
okay.
the list.
So then, now this is judging from what I think they are saying,
Correct. Not
because
not
I
where
would
you
I
would
would
personally
do,
put it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So then I will say Chrono Trigger's 54.
Incorrect, and by
It's
default,
number
you
one.
have determined that
Wow.
on their list, Chrono Trigger got the number 1 slot.
I am so glad for that, because that's where I would put it also,
Hmm.
as you probably know. So
Hmm.
I am actually very surprised that they put it number one. Okay, well, good. I have much more respect for IGN now. Way to go, IGN.
At
Um,
least one writer at IGN feels the same as you do. Okay,
therefore,
so
all of
you've got
IGN does.
54 and 52, and
I will
5
say,
games left.
I will say, Final Fantasy III is 52.
Incorrect. Final Fantasy 3 did not make the list.
Really? That's actually a
Yeah.
little surprising.
A number of Final Fantasies are on this list, but 3 didn't make it.
Yeah. Then I did say seven. I will say that is 52.
52 is indeed Final Fantasy 7.
Seven. Okay.
Um,
Actually, I don't know why I
they
didn't. I completely forgot that I said seven. That I should have said that as 52. Okay. So that's
And then
52.
finally, which of the last 3 games that we haven't talked about yet got the 54 slot? Was it Kingdom
I'm.
Hearts 3, The World Ends with You, or Legend of Zelda: Link to the
Ooh.
Past?
I'll actually say Kingdom Hearts 3. It's the
In
world ends with you, isn't it?
incorrect. It
It's the
is
world
The
ends
World
with you.
Ends with You. Well done.
Yeah, I was between those two that I was. Yeah. Ah, so
Um,
Kingdom Hearts didn't even make it on the. Kingdom Hearts 3
Kingdom
did
Hearts
not even
3
make it
didn't.
on the
Kingdom Hearts
list.
2 did make the list.
Two.
Um,
Oh,
yes. Final Fantasy
interesting.
7, 9, 12, 4, Tactics, and 6 made the list.
Okay,
6 was
whoa, wait a
number
minute.
2.
Is Tactics really an RPG?
Oh yes, Tactics is an RPG.
Really
The
though?
that is, you have a hero
Uh,
coming of age, big political drama. Yeah, it's a tactical RPG where you've got grids
okay.
and
All
movement
right,
on a
all right,
tactical
all
grid, but
right,
I think that is clearly an RPG.
all
Um,
right.
Yeah, you are playing the role of Ramza, the young squire who becomes a
Okay,
somebody
okay.
integral to the saving of the
Sure,
world
sure.
against evil forces. That's an RPG if I've ever seen one.
Okay.
Um,
Then is
and
Advance Wars one? I mean, what do
I don't think Advance Wars is because you don't really take on the role of somebody in Advance Wars, do you?
Okay, all right.
The
No,
whole role
I guess
playing
not.
of the game.
All right, all right.
And then I don't think any Zeldas made the list, which does to suggest to me that they don't consider them RPGs,
I'm sure that's a bit
because they're
controversial. Yeah,
certainly remarkable games.
yeah.
Well, that will get us in the mood for talking about some RPGs. Let's
Can I
throw
guess
it
the
to the
card that
theme
you're
song.
thinking of?
Oh, fine, quick. Guess the. Well,
Okay,
okay. Once we get back
the
from the
two
theme
of
song,
hearts.
you can guess.
Oh, okay.
Two brothers play a game. Two brothers play a game. Two brothers play a game. Then they will rate that game.
So is
Welcome.
it the two of hearts?
It's not. It's not the two of hearts. I was
Dang.
thinking of the seven of diamonds, of course. You
Oh,
were so close, though.
okay.
Um, Welcome to Two Brothers Play a Game. I'm Josh,
I'm Chris.
and this is a podcast where we, two brothers, play a game we found on sale for the Nintendo Switch. We do a fun segment in the front half of the podcast, and then discuss and review the game of the month in the back half of the show. For our opening segment, Chris, I hear you have been to the movies lately.
I have. I have. A
Did you?
couple of times, actually. Actually, two game movies. Really.
Ah, well,
It's funny that it's
we're going to be talking about the Mario movie, but what else did you see?
I saw Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yes, very good, very good. Highly recommend that.
Yeah. Yes. Me too.
Another RPG of a different variety,
Rip.
slightly different than what we're playing today, but also very fun, and highly
Yeah.
recommend that movie. But let's focus on Mario, so that's a little more applicable to our game,
Yeah.
and we'll branch out into tabletop role playing game on another episode maybe. What do you think of the Mario movie?
I really enjoyed it. It is definitely a kids movie that
Hmm.
that banks on a lot of nostalgia, but I think they just did a really good mix of it. So I mean I was not expecting anything world class as far as like writing for an adult audience and all, but I ended up really enjoying it more than I thought I would. Yeah.
Nice. Let's do a tiny mini review for this. So, how did you
Okay.
think of the presentation? What did it look like? How was the music in the movie?
It was I'd say presentation. Oh, the music. The music I think was amazing, and I think just because they used throughout the whole movie a lot of the video game themes
Uh-huh.
from a lot of different Mario games, but they did it in an orchestral arrangement, and it flowed really well. So it was like in appropriate places. It just it was almost kind of nonstop music, which is I mean which is a bit like a video game actually.
Hmm.
And so they just did it really tastefully. Wasn't annoying in any way.
Hmm.
I immediately like added the soundtrack to my streaming library as soon as I could, just because I really enjoyed it and thought they did a great job. And then presentation wise, if yeah, as far as like animation, it was very beautiful actually. I think that the characters looked really great, and they kept to all their video game forms. And then even in like the sort of like real world part, I think they did a really good job of making it seem like, okay, these aren't supposed to necessarily be cartoons. They look like cartoons, but like I can see a bit of like a real worldness to them, if that makes sense. And then it
Hmm.
switches up in the video, or not a video game, but Mushroom Kingdom area. And so yeah, I think they did a great job with the animation overall too.
Very nice. And the ever so controversial opinion, how did Mario sound? I hear for some sort of commercial they actually had the a video game Mario, the American voice actor that does the video game Mario, um,
They he
in
he
it,
makes
and
an
then
appearance.
he was like,
Yeah,
"Did I overdo the accent?" And Chris Pratt took over after that, or something like that.
kind of. I didn't realize. Yeah, I guess maybe he did do the that commercial part. He made an appearance as well, the original Mario voice too.
Uh huh.
So there's another spot you can hear him. And then supposedly, the original Peach voice is in that commercial as well.
Oh,
She doesn't do an actual Peach voice. I think she does a different voice, but it's at least the same voice actress. And I'm sure there's like a few others too. But there were moments with him that it sounded more like Chris Pratt than it did a Mario character. But I think overall he did a good job of like balancing having like a little bit of an accent and like not being overly stereotypically Italian,
uh huh.
which like for the most part, like I always enjoy Mario in the games. I was realizing like I don't know how much I really want to like hear him all the time that way.
Right.
And so I was a little, like when they first announced the movie, like I was a little concerned with that. And then hearing Chris Pratt did it, then I was concerned about that instead. No, I can understand if people are saying, "Oh, I don't like Chris Pratt doing the voice." I can understand, and I'm one of the people who think he did a great job, and I was fine with it. So, yeah,
Yeah, I've heard mostly great things about the movie in general and Chris Pratt's performance as well.
yeah,
So I think most people are pretty pleased with how things came out.
yeah.
Normally, uh-huh.
Oh, sorry. I had a Luigi wasn't bad. I had a little bit more of a problem with Luigi's voice actually. Between the
Interesting.
two, yeah. But otherwise, they both did. I mean, they did a great job, both of them. But
hmm
yeah,
Um,
he
I
yeah
I heard there was good back and forth between Mario and Luigi, which was cut short as Luigi is the one that gets kidnapped and
yeah.
Mario must go off to save. So unfortunately, we'll have to wait for the sequel to see more of the dynamics between Mario and Luigi. Um, Hopefully, they will work together in the
Yeah,
next one.
yeah.
Normally, we pivot to talking about gameplay in our reviews, but given this was a movie, how did you enjoy the nods to the Mario gameness? I think there's
Oh
supposed to be
yeah.
a Mario Kart sequence, as
Uh
well as
huh.
I'm sure hopping on Goomba's heads and things like that must have made it into the movie. Did it
Oh
feel
yeah.
cheesy or fun to tie the movie to the games?
Oh, I would put it this way. What I enjoyed most about the movie, like the video games kind of give some kind of story with Mario and Peach and etc. And like there's been games where you get a little bit of a background of them, right? But like not a lot. So
hmm
you don't you and even like background of like why does this happen in the Mushroom Kingdom? Like how does this work? I actually really, really, really liked that this movie provided a background for everything with the games, but not in a way where it's like, oh, you just ruined it. Like everything made sense and everything really tied back to all the video games. And so it was very much like, oh, wow, they actually expanded on the universe with it. Like they actually made sense of the whole universe. So that's how I would explain all the different nods to the games is that everything connected together greatly between all the Mario games, which is pretty amazing. Even back to just the very very earliest, like the Mario Brothers game itself. So
Nice. Did,
that
did
that
Mario get to jump at a tall flag and ride the flagpole down at any point?
he did, he actually
Nice.
did. Yeah.
Now, how about the story of this movie in particular? Did it entertain? Did it make any sense? Uh,
It did. Yeah.
did it leave you on the edge of your
Well,
seat?
it did. Like it did. It ran the same plot basically as like the video games where it's like Bowser's kidnapping Peach to marry her. Which I don't know how how like obvious that is in the games, but that's always been assumed in a lot of the video games that that's what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept that was the main plot of it, and I kind of wish that they had a different idea for Bowser to kidnap Peach, but that's fine. It fits the video game, and it's just kind of whatever. But
So
yeah.
Bowser kidnaps Peach in this movie as well as
Oh, sorry, I
Luigi?
shouldn't say kidnap. He only kidnaps Luigi. He's trying to get to Peach. I don't want to say anything to spoil some stuff. There's a bit of a like, he eventually sees Peach and some stuff happens. So,
Gotcha.
maybe he kidnaps her, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Like probably pretty predictable because it's a Mario game movie, but he's trying to get to the Mushroom Kingdom and get to Peach and marry her and force her to marry him and that kind of thing. So, you know,
Interesting. Interesting.
yeah,
This feels slightly problematic Mario movie, but then again, you are just a kids movie, so
it is. Yeah, what are you
we'll
gonna
let
do?
it go a little bit.
Yeah,
Any final thoughts and how many thumbs up you want to give to the Mario movie?
I would give it 2 thumbs up. I
Nice.
think again, I would say don't go into it expecting. I'm trying to think of what the equivalent kind of cartoon movie it would be, but it definitely was much more of a kid friendly movie and
Hmm.
made to be that way, and I could tell. But I would say I think adults that have played the games are going to really really enjoy it because it really really like expands on all the video games. It has all the fun nods. The visuals are just amazing, I think, and so I had a really good time watching it, and yeah, I
Nice.
would
Yeah,
recommend it. Yeah,
I've mostly heard, video game podcasters and reviewers talking about it, but everyone seems to have really enjoyed it.
yeah.
And again, I am hearing a lot of, this is great kids movie, and adults and parents will enjoy it as well, especially if they were
Hmm.
love the Mario games.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice. Are you going to go see the inevitable sequel to this Mario movie?
Oh, definitely.
Nice, nice.
And
That's a top
knowing,
marks.
well, and also because they alluded to what they would have in the sequel, and it is one of my favorite characters. So,
Yeah, oh, interesting.
yeah,
I haven't seen the movie, so I'm going to assume that means Yoshi, but I will
yeah.
not require you. Oh, okay, it does. I was going to say you don't have
Sorry,
to answer if you don't want to, but yeah, it's Yoshi.
I mean, I know I just spoiled it for you. It's an after credits thing, but it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I mean, sorry to say, you could probably guess everything that happens in this movie, having played all the Mario games. Like I certainly did. As everything was unfolding, I'm like, oh, they're going there. All right, this is gonna happen. Like, and it's like, yep, there it is. All right, so it's sort of, it's predictable, but it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll probably wait
I
for it
want
to
to see
hit
Yoshi.
streaming services, but I'm definitely going to
Yeah.
check this movie out at some point.
Yeah.
Great, great. And let's move on to our
All
main
right.
game, Tales of Vesperia. Something that also I can talk about because I did not see the movie, but I did play the game. So that will be fun. Chris, do you want to take a crack at describing Tales of Vesperia?
I don't really want to. I'm surprised probably anyone listening. I did not finish the game, so I did
Well,
not
this
get
is a
super
this is
far.
a big game. I also did not finish it,
Okay.
but I made about 6 hours in, and I think the game
Wow,
is at
that's
least
pretty
like
good.
50 some odd hours
Oh
long.
my.
So
Okay.
yeah, this is a full RPG experience with
Yeah.
big numbers of hours of content,
Whew.
even more, I'm sure, if you want to do all the side content and get all the final weapons and best
Yeah.
gear and see all the
Probably
side
unlock all the
quests.
character type stuff. Yeah.
I
So
found a Oh, go ahead.
no, no, no.
I found
Go right
a
ahead.
pretty good description of kind of setting the scene for us
Okay.
on Wikipedia. Tales of
Okay.
Vesperia is set in the world of nonsense name that you don't really care about.
Yeah.
In this world, the people use an energy source called air, spelled AER,
Hmm.
that is regulated by devices called Blastia. This powers much of the magic in the world, including creating protective barriers around its cities. That is a very important point, the protective
Hmm.
barriers. And our story focuses on Yuri Lowell, a former Imperial soldier who forms a guild called Brave Vesperia to aid Estelle, another one of the main characters, a noblewoman he encounters on a mission. As they explore the world, Brave Berseria are challenged by factions who have different plans relating to the abuse of Blastia resources, and Yuri is forced to confront his friend and former comrade Flynn, an active knight in his former platoon, I guess. So that's kind of the scene that the game takes place in. It's definitely a fantasy RPG with real-time action combat and this massive, fully voiced storyline that was just there is so much story in this RPG. It is astounding.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't like story and you always speed through it, this might not be the game for you because it is left, right, and center. Everywhere you look,
Yeah.
there is story and little cutscenes and little interactions between the characters. If that sounds like something you like, great game for you. If that sounds awful, maybe go back to playing one of the other games we talked about in the podcast series. But
Evoland.
yeah, anything you want to add to that?
No, that was. I mean, it's much better than I was gonna just say. Like, there's this Blastia thing, and it takes energy, and it keeps out monsters, and there's
Yeah,
Yuri, and yeah,
yeah, it's the same thing I said. Yeah,
yeah.
it's basically the exact same thing. One thing I found interesting, I did a little research into this because the Tales of dot 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 is a long-running franchise, much like
Oh,
the Final
really?
Fantasy games or the Dragon Quest games, where there's just countless games in these series, and
Huh?
they are all only vaguely connected at best. Like Final Fantasy, each game is pretty much its
Yeah,
own story and its own world, except for a
yeah.
handful of exceptions where there's actual sequels.
Or unless you play
But
Kingdom Hearts, but yeah,
well,
or Final
Kingdom Hearts
Fantasy.
is
Yeah.
its own thing. That I don't know if there are enough podcasts in the world to explain Kingdom Hearts and how
There
that
is not.
ties into anything. But the Tales of games are going back to like 97 or something, and older than that, I
Oh,
think. 95 was the first
surprising.
Tales of game back on the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo, and
Oh,
there have been probably, I don't know, 20 titles or something in the Tales of
wow.
series.
Okay.
And I thought I had played one back in the PlayStation era, and I looked through every single Tales of game trying to find the one I had played, and it turns out I played a game called Grandia, which is not a Tales of game at all. So this was my first
Oh,
Tales of
great. Yeah.
game, even though I've been meaning to play them for a long time. But
Wild
yeah, let's.
Arms. That
Well,
just came to mind that I played with you. That RPG on
oh,
PlayStation. That's another RPG that I have played is Wild Arms. Did that
that
make the
was very
list?
random.
Just as a brief
Uh,
tangent.
Brief tangent. Hold on, bringing up the list. I also need to send you. You can find the list in our show
Okay.
notes. I just sent it to
I
Chris
will.
so he
I
can put
will.
it in there.
Yeah.
I don't think Wild Arms will make it. In fact, none of the Wild Arms games. I think there's been six made it in there. Unfortunate. Great games though.
Yeah.
Highly enjoyed
Yeah.
the Wild Arms remake they did. I think it was Wild Arms Alter Code F. They remade the first game, and that came out on
Oh.
like PS3 or something like that.
Okay. Sorry. Anyway,
So
back to Tales of Vesperia, and
back
it's
to Tales of
20
Vesperia.
games apparently. Yeah.
Yes, long running series, but you can jump in at pretty much any point unless it's obvious. Like I think there's like Tales of Xenia 2 or something. You should probably play the first one before you play the second one, but all the others are standalone unless they have a number in it, I believe. So let's go into presentation.
Okay.
This was originally a game that came out in 2008 for the Xbox 360,
Hmm.
and then was re-released around 2018 for its 10-year anniversary, which is the Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition that we played. So it did get a little bit of a graphics update, but it is also an older game, so it does feel a little bit dated.
Yeah.
What did you think of the visuals, the music, the voice acting, etc.?
So I will say that's what stood out to me the most because there were definitely like full animation, great resolution of graphics for that. There was, yeah, I think the voice acting was amazing. Like the sound for that was really good for, for a game like that, just to have basically full on anime. And then I think they did a good job with and probably like a little bit with the way the game engine works too. For I mean, some of the cutscenes are within the game itself, if that is making sense, where it's it's dialogue between them and you can still hear them talk, but they're like you don't control them, but it's the forms that you do control. And I just thought they did an amazing job. I think especially for the platforms that it's been on, for that really surprised me at how well that all was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really bright and colorful game, which I think is kind of suited because at least in the first 6 hours of the game, the story keeps it pretty light in terms of tone, just kind of this light adventure story.
Hmm.
And I think the bright colors and the anime-esque styling made it fit well together. I kind of imagine it's going to take a slightly, maybe not darker tone, but certainly a more somber, serious tone as eventually, the world is threatened and these young adventurers need to take up their mantles and save the world. I assume that turn is going to happen at some point, but it's very fun, very light, very bright and colorful. One thing I was slightly disappointed in the presentation is in combat. I really love to see like lots of flashy moves and over the top attack
Hmm.
sequences and things like that. And at least at low level in these first 6 hours of the game, the combat abilities felt a little bland. I
Hmm.
eventually got the ability to punch people 3 times, and it wasn't some big
Yeah.
flurry of blows. It was just punch, punch, punch. That's my special attack is punching.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like they were trying to kind of like emphasize some combos
Hmm.
and with stuff like that. And I'm with you. Like it didn't land well for me either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also possible that things may get more elaborate as they all get stronger and go on their adventure together, and that might be cool to see if I ever make it to that point. But initially, I was a little underimpressed with the visuals of combat, but very impressed with the voice acting in the game, including
Yeah.
the Yuri voiced by Troy Baker, a very well-known voice actor,
Oh, yeah.
famously the voice actor of Joel in the video game The Last of Us, and very briefly seen in the TV show The Last of Us before taking a cleaver to the throat in a very dramatic fashion.
Hmm.
Um,
It
but
happens.
that happens when you're a voice
That
actor, not an
happens.
actor. But yeah, they did a great job with the voice acting and everything. Other than the
Yeah.
like random interactions with NPCs, everything is acted out. Every scene, every
Yeah.
little conversation, and there is a lot of them. And that's something that's pretty common in games today. But this again is a game that's 15 years old,
Yeah.
and that had that much voice acting is quite impressive.
Hmm. I think that's what I kept thinking is knowing, yeah, the age of it and not expecting it to have as much as it did, as far as
Hmm.
even animation too. So, yeah, and even
Uh,
fluid animation, I'll add on because like I think sometimes too, like it's the the encoding, not the encoding, this is the rendering
hmm
of like cutscenes can sometimes be a bit like choppy,
hmm
and it's from like the older systems and all, so like they don't really redo them sometimes for these games. Like they seem to either redo them or like completely redo them, like make new animations, but I felt like they were really smooth and looked good. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
would say the characters did move in very natural ways that were convincing. They did have that repass over for the definitive edition, so I don't know how things looked in the original
Hmm.
2008 release,
Yeah.
but certainly it looks great now. Let's pivot to gameplay. Um,
Hmm.
uh, what was the highlight of in the gameplay world for you playing Tales of Vesperia?
E highlight.
Yeah, well, what was your favorite thing about playing this
Um,
game?
I would I would say the combat wasn't, how to put it. I'm entering in
The,
saying
the,
that there's
the
there's
combat
a
was
problem.
not the
The combat
highlight,
was
I think, for
no,
either of
well,
us. Was there a highlight for you?
no, well, kind of like I liked it more than some of the rest of the elements of moving around. I think
Hmm.
like, but that's not saying that it was like a huge highlight for me. It worked. Like, I didn't mind the combat. It did, like I liked real time. I liked how they utilized the real time combat,
Hmm.
and how they had the even like the other members on your team be automated. That actually was really nice. Like they really would fight, which was good. And so you didn't have to maybe worry about them as much. So I like that, but that's not saying, yeah. You asked me like what the highlight was out of everything. Yeah, that was probably like gameplay wise, like yeah, I was okay with this. Like
Gotcha, gotcha.
just
Let's
okay with
let's
it. Yeah, yeah,
chat about the combat a little bit.
sure.
I did find the combat to be fairly robust, surprisingly robust. You know, you got your
Yeah,
attacks and you got a little combo thing that you can do. You also, what I was kind of surprised to discover is you would kind of like a fighting game. You'd have a low, mid, and high attack,
yeah,
and
yeah.
if you had a small enemy, your high and mid attacks might pass right over their head, so you'd have to go down into your low stance
Uh,
to do your attacks, and then you flying enemies, you probably you'd go underneath them if you did your low, so you need to find a way to hit them up high, and that was a nice little touch that I hadn't seen in an RPG. And your spells and abilities, which I did mention early on, aren't particularly flashy, but they're certainly
no.
effective for getting those damage numbers up.
And I did like
And
that
they,
you could do like a combo of sort of like a fighting game. Like you would hold up on the directional pad or whatever, and then hit the button, and it would do uh, this move, and it would do like if you did a different direction, it would do this move, and so you could assign everything so
yeah,
that that was even real time. Yeah,
kind of like Super Smash Brothers,
yeah,
where
yeah.
you had your attack button and your ability button, and also it mattered what direction you were pressing on the
Hmm.
thumbstick, what attack and what ability you would use in each section. A little extra complexity, but nothing too complex like a true
No.
fighting game where you'd have to pull out fancy moves on the controller. And it even had a blocking system on top of all that.
Yeah, yeah.
The one thing I really didn't like is to me the game didn't feel very responsive. Like
No, no.
everything I was doing was happening well after I did it, um, and my character would get stuck in animation cycles. And
Uh huh.
if I were in the middle of an attack combo, I wouldn't be able to cancel that attack and move into a block very quickly. So
Oh, and
generally,
moving away from enemies too in that sort of
yeah.
circle arena, that was so problematic for me. Yeah.
Yeah, to move in 3 dimensions, you'd have to hold a button to break off your lock on whatever enemy you had been locked onto, and yeah, moving didn't feel great. Occasionally, I would jump out of nowhere, and yeah, my blocks were sluggish. To
Hmm.
some degree, that kind of makes sense. If I'm in the middle of an attack combo, my defense is going to be sacrificed, and if I don't know. Something about that just didn't feel good. And then
No.
a classic thing from older games is if you hit somebody and they get knocked off their feet, you think that's a good thing, right? I've broken through their defenses. Now I get some free hits in before they can get back up.
Yeah.
No, you can't
No.
hit them when they get knocked down. I don't know why, but your attacks just swing through the air whenever they get knocked down, and you have to
Yeah,
wait
I
for them to
noticed
get
that
back
too.
up before you could attack them.
Hmm.
I guess maybe Yuri is just very, very, very honorable about the people that are trying to kill him. But yeah, I'm just kind of used to faster modern games, and this one is a little bit slower in the combat,
I
and
I
that's
think
not ideal.
we would have had a problem with it even when it first came out. Like there were games at that time were still more responsive than this. Because I mean, you think about like Kingdom Hearts was about that time out as well, and that had a much more responsive
True,
like
yeah,
combat system than this. So yeah, and that was real time also. So I mean,
true. I mean, that was even more action RPG than this game
mhm.
is. But yeah,
But
there were more
they could have
responsive games.
integrated that a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, the original Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002, 6 years before this game.
Yeah. So,
Um, One game I was playing, well, another one it's unimportant, but also I found that over the years, another action combat RPG, um, that as I went back to play an older one from around this time, I also found the combat to be kind of sluggish. But in the more recent games that I've played of the same series, it did pick up and get a little more
okay.
engaging and
There
allow
you go.
allow you to continue to combo people after they have fallen down. Be it dishonorable, you are still in a fight for your
Yeah.
life, so get those free hits
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
They will not wait for you to get back up.
No.
I can nearly guarantee it. I did you like how about just moving through the world? Because I think RPGs are really summed up with three things: watching the story and clicking through the story and
Uh huh.
combat, and then just moving about the world and talking to people and buying items from shops. So how about that third part of just moving through the world? Did that feel good? Did you like the
For
settings and the environments you were moving through?
when in towns or when within a setting. So towns, I know I got as far as like some forests and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I didn't actually much like the movement for that. It was sometimes confusing on where I was going, and then like talking to different characters really didn't yield almost anything at all, which is kind of actually interesting to me because usually you can sort of unlock things if you talk to people within a village, but this didn't, to me, where I was at, it really didn't do much, which was interesting. I did like the movement on the world map though, because you would still encounter some enemies, you would still do some other things along the world map, and I thought that movement was fine, and like that idea of like you're actually having to move your character freely about the map, and you had that kind of way. That was actually kind of a nice feature, I thought. So yeah.
Hmm. Um, I enjoyed moving about the world fairly well. Again, it's an older game, 15 years old
Yeah.
now, so it's not going to be quite as amazing and detailed as a modern game, but it's still there was a lot of imagination put into this world.
Yeah.
Just past the forest, I think you're going through is a city built around this big single tree that eventually blossoms into, these pink leaves that start falling down around you, and that was nice. I've been into an underground mage's library that was pretty cool, and ruins, and of course the forest. So like, kind of all the traditional places you'd go to in a fantasy setting
Yeah.
are there, and it keeps it interesting when it's constantly changing and being fantastical like that. And one thing that I thought was interesting is that the camera angle is chosen by the game,
Yeah.
unlike other 3D games around this time where the player would control their camera as well as their movement.
Yeah.
The camera was in a fixed position, which
Yeah.
you think would create like this very cinematic experience where it's like a director is pointing your camera right where they want it to be.
You
But
would
I don't
think.
think it added a lot to the game. Like I don't think it was super
Yeah.
dynamic, or super planned. Like every shot didn't feel particularly planned.
Hmm.
So it was a choice, and it was fine, but it's a little strange
Yeah.
to not have control of the camera.
I'd agree.
Uh, let's. Oh, one thing I wanted to talk about is, especially with a game like this where there is a lot of repetitious combat going on. Do
Uh huh.
you multitask when you're playing games like this? Do you put on a podcast or a audiobook or
You
watch a
know,
show in the background?
usually I do. This one, surprisingly, I didn't a lot. Actually, I think I only did it once.
Hmm.
The reason was just again like the thing that stuck out for me the most was the voice acting. The music actually was pleasing to me enough. But yeah, it had it had a very animated style to it, and so I actually enjoyed the fact that there were voice actors that were fully fleshed out in in their characters and everything, and so I wanted to hear their dialogue. I wanted to hear what was going on. So I actually didn't multitask where usually I do with a lot of games that way. Yeah.
I still did with this game. It certainly does have lots of story
Yeah.
where I'd have to, pause my podcast or whatever I was doing to focus on the story. But it did start to get a little grindy when I got
Hmm.
to the 6 hour point. I ran into a boss that was just absolutely devastating me. Couldn't beat it after a couple tries. So right where I paused the game to record, I had to go back and make sure I had the best gear and get a couple more levels by fighting in the overworld for a little
Yeah.
bit. So it is older games can be very grindy. Modern games are a little less grindy, where you
Hmm.
have to just fight your way to get stronger. This appears to be the slightly grindier version, though I don't know how often I will run into that problem. This was only one instance where I couldn't continue because I wasn't strong enough yet. So that may just be a one-time thing. Who knows? Let's go to the story. We've talked a little bit about it, but how did you feel about the various characters you met, starting with Yuri, the former knight,
Yeah.
who now seems to be on the wrong side of the law?
I thought he was a fine character. I felt like he was a very typical RPG character of a certain style. It's sort of that like anti-hero type
Hmm.
one. Um, yeah, I'd say he was kind of flat in that way. He just felt like he felt like a character I've seen in other RPGs way too much. Of like, all right, he's the anti-hero. He's kind of the rebel. He doesn't really care, but he's gonna care. He's
Right.
got some kind of a backstory, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
the
that
the
felt,
gruff loner with a heart of gold that will
yeah,
lay down their life for a friend type thing, but also will be rude and dismissive
hmm,
of their allies.
yeah. So it was fine. I wasn't too compelled by him. So and even a little bit of his look felt a little bit stereotypical of some other RPG characters. So yeah,
Uh, how about contrasted with Estelles or Estelle, the princess, the sheltered princess that is now out adventuring for the first time? Uh,
I
Go ahead.
oh well no, I was gonna say like she felt a little bit flat as well in that way, just because she felt a little stereotypical too.
Gotcha.
And it's exactly that. It's you randomly meet the like royal princess character that you help at first, and then she decides to join you on the quest. It's like, yeah, that feels about right. And even her spells were about healing, and it's like, yep, that feels very very common to other RPGs. So, and they even at first, at least like dialogue that was going through at first, like they were being a little bit more obvious of the possible relationship between them that would unfold, but it was still a little bit like, yeah, yeah, this usually happens in RPGs. This is not a surprise. Like
Right.
for them
The
to have
first
something,
two, the first two characters will have a little bit of a will they, won't they,
yeah,
throughout the game. And sometimes that never turns into anything, and
no,
sometimes it
but
becomes a big story
yeah,
pivoting point. But no word on whether or not those two will become an item or not
yeah.
at the 6 hour mark.
Now,
Um,
now
uh,
the
the
dog,
dog is the coolest
Rapide.
character. Yeah,
Yes,
Repeat.
Rapide. He smokes. He smokes a pipe.
He has such a long, like this classic long Japanese style pipe that is just delightful. He uses a
Yeah,
dagger that he holds in his mouth.
yeah.
It's the coolest dog in the world.
Oh yeah,
Big
yeah.
fan of Rapide.
Me too. The Rapide was my favorite character out of the three. That was yeah,
Yeah, he's going to be in my party the entire game.
yeah.
Uh, Hopefully. Let's see. There were two more characters I met. Carol, the young kid who says
Oh,
they
I
are.
didn't. Yeah,
I
in
think
the
you're just
forest.
about to meet Carol in the forest. Yeah.
No, I did
Uh,
meet Carol.
okay.
I
Okay.
got him. I saved him, and he joined my party. Yeah.
Yeah, this apparently he's 12, and definitely seems like a
Yeah,
young kid, but
yeah,
is claims to be a renowned member of some kind of
yeah,
cartographers guild, but
yeah.
definitely seems like he is overselling his position. But you know, he knows stuff. He's got stuff to offer the party, and then
Giant
just a little bit
axe, right?
a giant axe for one. Just
Yeah,
nice to have one more person in the party. And then a little bit later, you find Rita, the what's the word I'm looking the not protege, you know, the young
like
genius
squire. Oh,
magician.
okay. Ah, okay. Apprentice.
But
Apprentice. Yeah.
no, like the word for a kid that's really good at something from a very young
Oh,
age.
protege. Yeah.
Is it? That doesn't sound right. But whatever word it is,
Or
you know, this young genius magician joins you who
prodigy.
knows
That's it. Sorry, I
prodigy.
need to.
That's it.
I need to start with the
That's it.
PRO.
Yep,
Sorry.
yep.
Yeah, prodigy.
So close.
There we go.
But the prodigy magician um, joins the party and seems to know a great deal about Blastia and things like that. So I'm sure she will
Okay.
become an important part of the party as this story continues. A pretty colorful cast again.
Yeah.
Definitely anime vibes. There are fully anime style cutscenes occasionally, not super often,
Yeah.
but like something
A
you
lot
might
of
see in a
dialogue
TV
though.
show.
But yeah.
But oh my goodness, so much dialogue.
Yeah.
Did you engage in much of the optional skits, the ones where there's little talking windows?
I did a few, and I was
Uh-huh.
doing them at first, hoping it would give me a clue for what I was supposed to do. And then after about like three or four, I'm like, no, these don't tell me anything.
Yeah, they are absolutely optional, absolutely only for the fun,
But you
you know,
can't
the little
exit out of
character
them.
development. Nope, and you
Yeah.
can't speed through them either.
No.
So you,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
thankfully, the lines are delivered at the voice acted lines
Yes.
are delivered at a good pace,
And
so
there's
like
some
a natural
animation.
conversation paces.
Yeah.
And the way I would describe it is like picture the ending of the theme song of the Brady Bunch when they're all in their little windows,
Yep.
and
That's
that's
a good
what a
way to put
skit
it.
is.
Yeah.
It's a thing in the Tales of games, going back to the second game in this long-running
Okay.
series, where they have these optional character interaction moments, but they're just, you know, telling you a little bit of the world or the characters, or having a little commentary on something that just happened in the story, and it's a nice touch if you're enjoying the story, and it's also optional, so you could just
Yeah.
walk right by. You don't have to engage if you don't want to. But I enjoyed them. But between the
So.
cutscenes and the skits, it's like every 3 feet
Oh
it feels
yeah.
like there's a new little bit of
Yes.
story to hear.
Yes. Oh my word. Now we're talking about characters and different things.
Uh-huh.
Are we going to address the Pokemon that are in this game?
You're
Do
gonna
you
have to
like
enlighten me as what you're talking about.
the
Go for
Pokemon
it.
that you kept slashing at and fighting all the Pokemon? You fight all
The
the Pokemon.
the monsters?
They're pretty much Pokemon. I mean, like
Maybe I didn't make that connection. As I was playing it. You think they just,
really?
you know, they look like cute little monsters that would be Pokemon in a Pokemon game?
Yeah. I felt
Okay.
like, I mean, there's a sewer one and they were rats. It was like
Yeah,
Raticate.
little round
Like,
rats, very round little rats.
like it
They
was
do
pretty
feel
much
very
Raticate.
cute to be dismissed
And
as
then
monsters.
and then the forest had like the I don't know the actual Pokemon name, but the ones that look like onions and have like the vines coming out of their heads, like it was pretty much the same thing. And I'm like, I'm fighting Pokemon. Like these are all Pokemon. This is this like the origin of the Pokemon, or like when Pokemon go bad? Like what is this game? Like it's, they're all
I
Pokemon.
suppose so. They do have again. This is kind of this colorful, almost cute style anime.
Yeah,
So having cute style monsters does make sense in here, but then you do get into a Pokemon vibe where you are fighting monsters that you also could easily befriend
catch
and turn
in a
into party
ball.
members. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I'm looking through some screenshots, and there are some very
yeah.
cutesy mushrooms that you
Huh?
encounter at some point in this
Huh?
game.
The Pokemon. You're fighting Pokemon. I don't care what they
Okay,
call them in
well,
the game. They're Pokemon. Yeah.
unfortunately, you cannot catch these Pokemon, but you do
No,
get to
no.
see quite a variety of different enemies
Yeah.
throughout the game. The one thing
And
I thought
you
was
like
really
come upon them like they magically appear in like grass and stuff, and then like You you like walk up to them, then you start like combat. It's Pokemon.
Pretty
You're a
much,
Pokemon
I
game.
suppose so. Maybe eventually, because they do add new systems throughout RPGs often. Maybe there'll be a catching and training system still ahead.
Could be, yeah.
The one thing I thought was interesting about the skits is this feels kind of like the precursor to party banter that is in all modern games, where you're just walking around and your party members will start chattering at each other, and that's something I really enjoy in modern games. That this is basically the same thing, except you have to stop and enjoy the banter rather than enjoying it while you're actually going about the game. So
I
not
can see
quite
that.
as
Okay.
good, but also 15 years ago it was probably cutting edge, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
Uh,
actually it's this style is still something that I haven't seen, and I don't. If it were, I feel like if it were a little bit wittier, or if it actually really like advanced something in the game or like helped fill in some gaps with the game, it would have been cooler. Because it is different, but it didn't do anything.
yeah, yeah.
for the
So
game.
far, everything has been just for funsies,
Yeah,
little character development.
yeah.
Nothing too big. Occasionally, I do enjoy the parts where they talk about the world. They kind of build out the lore of the world a little bit
Hmm.
more, but that's not in every single one. So as we head into kind of final thoughts here, I am on the fence about whether or not I will finish this game. I hope to
Mm.
at some point, but also there's just so many good games out there that this one may get left by the wayside as just not being quite as good as the other option of whatever game I'm thinking about playing. Do you think you're going to come back to this game, or are you all done, or any other final thoughts?
I'm done. Yeah, I don't think I'll go back to it. I don't think. Yeah,
Certainly plenty of it left if you if you ever
yeah,
get the in the mood because it's a big one, and it certainly has a good value. I think we picked it up for something like eight
Eh,
dollars. It is like
maybe
a
that.
$50
Yeah,
game full price,
yeah,
but it was pretty far discounted. So you can get a
yeah,
lot of game for your dollar if that's important to
yeah,
you. Let's
mm,
go into rating then. What would you
yeah.
like to go first, or shall I?
I'm gonna let you go first because something you just said is making me think a bit. Yeah,
The Chris always considering the value of a game.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm decided on one thumb up for this game.
Okay,
I did enjoy it. I am considering playing the entire game because I do love
okay.
RPGs, and this is a
Hmm.
quality RPG. If you like fantasy RPGs, you'll like this game.
Yeah,
If you don't, you won't like this game. It's pretty
yeah,
clear as that. It's not going to be the RPG that convinces people to try out RPGs, though. You kind of already have to be in on the genre to enjoy this one. It looks pretty good. The gameplay is fine. It's not great, and the combat doesn't feel amazing. And you're going to be doing a lot of it. But as time went on, I got a little better at it. It was a little more fun, and like I said, this is a pretty good game for putting on a podcast or something in between or at least a few minutes in between each cutscene that is inevitably going to come at you. And so far, I'm interested in the story. I care enough that I want to know what happens next, and I'm starting to get invested in these characters. So I think it definitely deserves one thumb up from me, but
okay,
wasn't quite great enough to get the second thumb. How
okay.
about you?
I so now hearing the way you bring up some other things, I would actually do no thumbs up
Okay.
for it. And I think it's mostly something you just described. I do like fantasy RPGs. I would say probably not quite as much as you. Not, I mean, I say that of
Mhm.
just like yeah, just our like preferences of games and everything. But it definitely, for me, was not a strong fantasy RPG, and so it was not enough for me to just pick up and fully enjoy versus like a lot of other ones. And I know this is a weird comparison, but like because we were talking about it before, but like Wild Arms is a really random RPG to just like pick up.
Mhm.
But I remember when you got it and when we started, well, you started playing it, and I would watch it, and I'm like, that looks fun. I think I actually want to play it. And playing it, like I actually spent a lot of time for it, considering that the game system was in your room, so I'd always have to do that. So like that one is an example of like, okay, that's a random RPG with a random story, random gameplay, and I quite enjoyed it. And so this one being the same, like a really random RPG, I could not focus myself on it that well.
Mhm.
And so it was that kind of problematic for me. So yeah, that it was hard. So yeah, no thumbs up for me with
Okay.
it.
And then normally we're talking hypotheticals when we look at sequels, but this game already has like five sequels in the Tales of series. More than that, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven games have come out in the Tales of series since Vesperia. So
Wow.
quite a few options.
Okay.
Do you think you're going to come back to the Tales of series? Do you think if you did, you'd pick one up on sale, or you want to pick one up at all?
I don't think I would pick one up.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard of the. I actually ended up bringing up the IGN website that we were talking about before because I was curious if it was actually on there, and I noticed
Uh-huh.
there's a Tales of Symphonia, which I have heard about quite
And
a
Tales of
bit.
Vesperia made the list as well.
It did, I know. So I can totally understand how it did. It's not. Um, I couldn't name the RPGs that I have played that I just had a terrible time with, but I know there's been some where I'm like, oh no, I'm trying this and I do not want to keep playing it. If I like what you were saying, if RPGs are your favorite genre, this is not a bad one to pick up at all. But for me, I think for like a more casual RPG player, it was not. But I've heard a lot about Tales of Symphonia, and
Yes.
that has intrigued me at times. I don't now having played Vesperia, I don't know if I do want to pick it up. Um, so yeah, it doesn't now Tales of Symphonia doesn't sit too well with me for wanting to grab it. So
Tales of Symphonia actually just got, like, probably this last month, just got a remaster for the
okay,
Switch and probably other consoles as well. So it
yeah,
also got the upgrade treatment even more
okay,
recently than Vesperia, even though Symphonia, I believe, is just a little bit older than Vesperia is. I'd have to consult the list one more time, but it is. Let's see. Vesperia is
it was
2008. Symphonia is
yeah,
2003, so another 5 years back.
wow, okay,
But the remake being a little more recent, hard to say where it shakes out. But that was
I
a
don't know,
very well known game back in the day, and I imagine there'll be a bit more chatter about it now that it's getting a remake.
yeah,
Um, I actually picked it up, I think, for the Wii way back when, and never played it, so it's still sitting on the shelf. Maybe it'll get played someday. I actually do not only plan to, already have purchased a different Tales of game, the latest in the
really,
Tales series, Tales of Arise. I have for
okay,
the PS5, so I will be not only purchasing but playing eventually
wow,
another
all
Tales of
right.
game. So that currently we're kind of in between. You're not interested, I'm interested on sale. Do you think we should round it up to a full point or just give it the half point for the purchase question?
Ooh, I think it could be 1 point. Yeah.
Okay. So we will give it a little bump to 2 out of 6. Not the greatest score, but getting more of a recommendation. You can kind of weight that higher if you're into RPGs, and
Yeah.
weight it right where it is, maybe a little lower even if you are not into RPGs. Um, it's a very fine game and has some quality work, but still a little dated.
A little clunky. Yeah.
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 But let's talk about what's coming up next.
Okay.
We will be continuing in the next couple of weeks. We'll be continuing our Chrono Trigger recap series, a recap
Mm-hmm.
from memory series. So keep an eye out for that. And then after that, for our next main episode, we'll be playing Card Shark. Card Shark is a very interesting game. It's set in like 18th century France. And includes some elements of like secrets and intrigue. But the main thing is that you are a kind of apprentice to a card shark. And you must not learn how to be good at cards. You must learn to be good at cheating at cards. And so the game will actually teach you a little bit about how to cheat at cards and have little
Hey.
mechanics about how to know what the right con is to do and how to maneuver the card deck in such a way that's advantageous to you.
Okay.
So we will be becoming master con artists in the art of the card shark coming up
All
next
right.
month. That'll be fun. I'm excited about that one. I think that'll be a nice little change of pace. And it's not as a beefy a game, only about 7 hours, rather than closer to 70 as Vesperia was. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, Chris has been putting up fairly regular updates on Twitter that let you know what the latest and greatest is. And Chris has also been doing a live stream or two. So if you want to see more of the games that we are playing, maybe see some actual gameplay, rather than just hearing us talk about it, you can check out our YouTube, Two Brothers PAG. And that will link you to all our videos, including quite a few on Super Nintendo World, if you enjoyed that episode and want to see more of the very fantastic theme park. And find out the latest on Twitter at Two Brothers PAG. You can also email us twobrothersplaygame@gmail.com. And please, if you have a second, pop on iTunes and give us a review. We'd really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Now, Chris, one last thing. I know you ended up going to school for graphic design and art history, but if I recall, you also considered geology for a time. Just remind me, what was the main reason for you being interested in geology again?
Oh, it's because mountains are nice.
This is the life.